The distance between us. Part 1, Chapter 11. The money Mommy had brought from El Otro Lado ran out fast. Halfway through the summer, she looked into ways to make money, but it was hard to find work. With this economy, it's tough for everyone right now, Abuelita Chinta said. By the train station was La Quinta Castrejon, a fancy place where wealthy people went to swim or have parties, even though it was on the outskirts of our neighborhood, which was as poor as could be. But La Quinta Castrejon sat there in our poverty, teasing us, reminding us of what we couldn't have. It was surrounded by a cinder block wall topped with broken pieces of glass. The driveway was lined with palm trees, the only palm trees in the neighborhood, like soldiers standing guard. Inside was a large swimming pool and 3 smaller pools for kids, and a playground with swings and slides and a seesaw. Weddings and quinceañeras were held in the banquet hall every weekend. That place is immune to the recession, Mommy said. People still have to get married. Inflation can't stop young girls from turning 15. We started to sell snacks there on the weekends. On Saturday, after a lunch of alphabet soup and tortillas, Mommy prepared the merchandise. At around 5 o'clock, Mago, Carlos, and I left with Mommy. Betty stayed home and cried. She wasn't allowed to come. Mommy wanted her to come along. She wanted all of us to come so the guests at La Quinta Castrejon would see that she had 4 mouths to feed and would take pity on her and buy her merchandise. But the first night we went to sell, Betty got sick, and Abuelita Chinta said it was the midnight dew that made her ill. Mommy said, "She's an American. This is why she's so fragile." But Mago, Carlos, and I had thick Mexican blood running through our veins, and neither the midnight dew nor the chill of the night would make us ill, so we had to come along. We got to La Quinta Castrejon and were disappointed to see the other mothers setting up their stands. They had all their kids with them, too. The winner was the mother with 5 kids, the youngest tied to her back with a shawl. Mommy cussed under her breath and began to set up her stand. She put out the mint and caramel candy, little bags of peanuts and roasted pumpkin seeds, cigarettes, and matches. Mago and I helped her with the stand while Carlos went around the parking lot offering to watch people's cars in exchange for tips. We watched a limousine approach. I prayed it was a quinceañera, first because I loved quinceañeras, and second because I didn't want to clean the outhouse if I lost the bet I'd made with Mago. The limo driver opened the door, and a young girl in her puffy pink dress and glittery tiara emerged. We watched her and her escorts walk into the hall while everyone clapped for her and congratulated her on becoming a little woman. Soon all the guests were inside, and we were out in the cold night, shivering and blowing puffs of warm air into our hands. It was the middle of the rainy season, and the sky was thick with rain clouds. Once in a while, lightning flashed over the mountains. Mommy paid no heed to the weather. She rearranged her goodies, trying to find just the right way to display them. A man came outside to buy a pack of cigarettes, and he looked at Mommy and at Mago and me. I put on my sad face, just like Mommy had told me to do, so that he'd feel sorry for us and buy from us. But I knew no matter how hard I tried, I was 7, too old to compete with the baby nursing at his mother's breasts. The man, who looked like a prince in his suit and tie, bought his cigarettes from the woman and even gave her an extra tip. For her children, he said, and then went back to the party. I didn't look at Mommy because I knew she was angry at me, at the man, at the mother with her 5 children, at Papi for putting her into this situation, at herself for leaving El Otro Lado in a moment of desperation. "I should have stayed," she said sometimes. "He left me there on my own, and I knew no one, but I should have stayed. There were jobs, maybe not great jobs, but at least we weren't starving. And here in Mexico, with the cost of everything going up, how are we going to survive?" I leaned against the wall and tried not to think about that beautiful place she yearned for. Mommy picked up her tray of cigarettes and gum and went into the reception hall to offer them to the guests. Sometimes she got kicked out. Sometimes, if the hosts were kind, they let her stay for a bit. Mago and I walked over to admire the pool through the chain-link fence. From out here, we could see the pool clearly, shining like a blue jewel. Above the ticket office was a white poster. The admission prices were listed on it, and Mago helped me add up the numbers because I hadn't learned to add big numbers yet. The cost of swimming here for my siblings and me plus Mommy was 2 days' worth of meals. "Your father worked on those pools," Mommy said from behind us, startling me. I turned to look at her. expecting her to be angry at us for leaving the stand unattended. I thought she'd yell at us, but instead she said, "Your father tiled those pools." We turned to look at the big pool and admired the navy blue tiles going all around the edge and covering the inside of the pool. "Papi did that?" I asked, with awe. I knew Papi worked in construction, but I never really knew until then which projects he'd worked on around the city. One day he came home after work and told me that as soon as the pool opened, he would bring me here to swim. Mommy put her forehead right up against the fence and looked at the pool. As a thank you gift, the owner allowed the workers to come for a day to enjoy the pool free of charge. "So your father brought me here. Imagine that. I don't know how to swim, but your father does. He held on to me the whole time. I was so afraid, but not once did he let me go." I turned to look at Mommy and saw the pool reflected in her teary eyes. I wanted to tell her what Mago had told me once before. Memories are yours to keep forever. I wanted to tell her as long as she held on to those special moments with her and Papi, they would always be hers. That other woman couldn't take them from her. But Mommy had already wiped her tears. She had already looked at the stand and noticed we hadn't sold anything. She walked away with brisk steps, her hands clenched into fists, yelling us for us to come and tend the stand, or there would be no money for food the next day. "I can't do everything by myself," she said angrily. "You kids are old enough to help." I didn't move away from the fence. The music inside the hall drifted out into the cold night. It was finally time for the waltz. I looked at the pool Papi had tiled with his own hands and imagined myself dancing the waltz with him. In my mind's eye, he was holding me tight, whispering into my ear how proud he was of me for becoming a little woman. "Get away from there," Mommy said as she pulled on my ear. She dragged me away from the pool and the pretty tiles, and I went back to tend the stand with Mago. Soon it was midnight, and the rain was starting. The guests came out, rushing to their cars without another glance at our goodies. Carlos and the other boys ran from one car to another, trying to collect their tips from the guests. Some guests ignored the boys' outstretched hands and hit the gas pedal too hard. I worried for Carlos as I saw him jump out of the way to avoid being hit by a car. "This is the last time we come here," Mommy said as she threw all the goodies into a bag. I had never liked coming here before, but now the thought of not coming back to look at the pools made me sad. "It'll be better next weekend, Mommy," I said. "Maybe next week the guests will be different." But Mommy wasn't listening. She threw the bags onto our shoulders and folded the metal table and carried it over her head. Just as the rain began to pour, we rushed down the long driveway. We slid on the mud, our legs getting splattered by the cars. The guests turned right onto the paved street to go back to their fancy homes, and we turned left and stumbled on the dark dirt road to my grandmother's shack. Mommy wouldn't slow down, even though we were gasping for breath and our legs were burning and our sides were hurting. She stared straight ahead and didn't look back.